This presentation is about the cognitivism as a learning theory. So, why I am talking about Gestalt psychology. If you refer my previous videos, you may get to know why. We are now going to start our lesson from where we stopped earlier. So, as I already said to you before going to cognitivism, let's take a moment to reflect on our previous exploration. Okay, so you might remember we revisited the key characteristics of major schools of psychology, such as structuralism, functionalism, and behaviorism. In our last episode, we centered our attention on behaviorism as a learning theory, the key characteristic of Gestalt psychology. Alright, so the Gestalt psychology as an overview, Gestalt psychology is an approach to psychology that emphasizes the importance of understanding the whole picture rather than just individual parts. Key elements. This means that perceptions are not just the sum of individual sensory stimuli. Rather, we perceive objects in their entirety as unified wholes. What it means? Can you give an example? Okay, I will give you an example. Think you are going to exhibition to see some of the artwork like painting. So in there, we don't see the brush strokes or the colors separately in that artwork, right? We are seeing the whole picture. Okay, another example when we are going to visit to look at the forest, we are not seeing just as the individual sees. Alright, so this approach highlights how we perceive things as a complete and organized way about cognitive psychology as a school of psychology. Alright, so in that key characteristics we can divide into two: information processing and the cognitive development. Gradually you will get to know we are going to focus about cognitive as a learning theory as the next one. So here as information processing focus on how the mind processes and stores information including perception, memory and problem solving. Emphasize the use of mental models to understand how individuals think, reason and learn. On behalf of that, cognitive development explores how thinking skills and abilities develop across different stages of life, particularly in childhood. Highlights the role of schemas, assimilation, accommodation in shaping cognitive growth and understanding. Okay, here we are going to learn about cognitivism as a learning theory. We already discussed cognitive psychology key characteristics. There is no any difference, you may get to know. But here we are going to talk about learning theory, right? So we are going to look at what it says. So first, focuses on internal mental process and understanding. It's like looking at our mind works inside of the head. And when we are going to learn something, how it will process. That is what here I mentioned now, focuses on internal mental process and understanding. It's like thinking about how we remember things, understand any concept, and how we are going to solve a math problem inside in our head. So it's like figuring out a puzzle, or we are going to recall where we left our keys at home, like that. So the second bullet says cognitivism as a learning theory views learning as the acquisition of knowledge and mental structures. What it means? It's like collecting puzzle pieces to form a complete picture in our mind. Alright, why I say it like that? In cognitivism, learning considering as grabbing a new knowledge and building a mental structures to understand. Got it? Okay. The third bullet is emphasizes the role of memory, attention, problem solving. Those are the three things like strategies placed when we are learning something new. Alright, it plays a special role, like a memory, like recalling our old friend's phone number, and attention, like focusing on teacher's explanation, and problem solving, like figuring out a tricky math problem inside our mind. So actually, these are plays as and the mental tools we are going to use when learning something, like memory, attention, and problem solving. Alright, so the key figures include Jean Piaget, Lev Vygotsky. I'm going to talk about them later in this presentation, so don't worry about it now. So the application includes strategies for information processing and cognitive development. Okay, now we are going to talk about Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget is the pioneer of the constructivist theory of cognitive development. That means Jean Piaget was proposed cognitive development theory. And in that, Jean Piaget uh, introduced stages of cognitive development as sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. In sensory motor stage, we are talking about birth to 2 years. Okay, uh, infants, how they are getting experience from the world around them using their senses and their motor activities. Okay, so in the pre-operational, it's come to age 2 to 7. They are using a symbol to represent objects, but in this stage, they are weak at logical reasoning. So when it comes to concrete operation, that where logical reasoning coming, like conservation principle, that comes with the age 7 to 11. So next one is formal operational. That will be in teenage level to adult level. So in that time, abstract thinking will happen. So we don't worry. We are going to talk about this in detail. So the keywords include the construction of reality in the child and the psychology of intelligence, influential in education and child psychology. We are going to discuss about Jean Piaget's stages of cognitive development. As the first stage, sensory motor stage, here presented birth to 2 years. Infants experience world through senses and actions, developing object permanence and basic understanding of causality. What it exactly means? In infant, if you familiar with those aging, you may get to know there are some sort of dropping toys and again getting it back, throwing and trying to put inside of their mouth. So, uh, if they will drop something and they are already looking for it, like even it's not existing there. So, what it exactly means? That is what called here object permanence. They are showing understanding about the object permanence in this stage. So you should remember in birth to 2 years they will use their senses and actions by developing object permanence. And then when it comes to pre-operational stage, it's coming on 2 to 7 years. Children engage in symbolic play and develop language, but struggle with conservation and egocentrism. Egocentrism means hereby they are not caring about others, right? So, uh, but in this age category, they are trying to develop language skills and begin to use their imagination as well. But they are struggling with understanding conservation. It is the idea of the quantity, even the quantity of some objectives remain constant. They are they can't understand about it. Okay, I will give you example. If you will give a glass of water and the same amount in a different shape of a bottle, same amount, okay? But they are having a difficulty to understand that is the same amount. They are thinking as they are treated unequal. Alright? So that is what we are called they are struggling with the conservation. And they are always right about their opinions, that is called egocentrism. And that kind of things happening in a pre-operational stage, age 2 to 7 years. Alright? Okay, then we come to concrete operational risking. That's where children develop logical thinking happening on age 7 to 11 years. So in this age, they are able to understand about the conservation, classification, and if you given a set of elements, so they can order it by the size or whatever you are saying. So they can order the objects and classify the object, and those skills they are developing in the concrete operational stage. So the last one is formal operational stage. Here mention 11 plus years, that means adolescents to adults. They are engaging in abstract thinking, hypothetical reasoning, and problem solving. That means they are more into cause and effect relationship, and they were like scientifically reasoning. Okay, now we come up to talk about the Lev Vygotsky socio-cultural theory of development. What is exactly meaning by socio-cultural theory of development? It is mean by how social interaction and the cultural tools shaping our cognitive ability. Okay, so in here, Vygotsky is believing children are learning through the social interactions such as happening with the peers or the parents or the teachers. So within the community, okay, like as a kind of conversation or the collaborative problem solving and also the cultural activities. And that's will be a tool for enhancing their cognitive ability. Not only that, here was mentioning in the second one cultural tools. What kind of a cultural tools? I already gave you some example, but I'm thinking to give you some kind of a more. As a cultural tools, we can take language, symbols, or the artifacts. So, in here, language, if we take a language, it will be a cultural tools which affect how the children perceive and they understand the world around us. Alright, that's how they show how the cognitive development happens with the help of social interaction and the cultural tools. Alright, okay, now we come up to the second bullet. Introduce the concept of zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development. It seems like a difficult word, but if I will give you an example, I can give you an example like this, okay? If a child if a child can't solve a math problem, but with the guidance, he or she can solve that question in the math. Alright, what is exactly meaning by the zone of proximal development and what's the connection with that example? Actually, in the zone of proximal development, it addresses the difference between what a child can achieve without guidance. only by independing his own ability. So that difference is talking about the so as the zone of proximal development. Okay, in here that paragraph is mentioning advocated the use of scaffolding to support learning. What is that technique? It is like go with the last example I was given in some student was not able to solve a math problem, but with the guidance of a peer or the teacher, he was able to solve the math problem, right? That's what called that different as the zone of proximal development. So scaffolding in scaffolding, the teacher is the guider, and when he get familiarized with the guidance and the support till stop, that's a like a continuous gradual practice given by the teacher. It's a kind of scaffolding technique here to support the learning process of the kid. So his work has influenced educational practices and understanding of child development. So scaffolding here is directly linked with the zone of proximal development. Because as why I am saying like that because as a guide, teacher is always trying to help the kid gradually until he was familiar with the concept, with the new knowledge. Understood? So there is no any difference. It's a scaffolding will act as a teaching method. Okay. So when we are going to talk about the social cultural theory of development as a technique, we can use scaffolding and the Vygotsky also introduced the concept of zone of proximal development through the scaffolding technique. Alright. Okay, now it's time to understand important points. Zone of proximal development, the difference between what a learner can do without help and what they can achieve with the guidance from a more knowledgeable peer or adult. That is what calls zone of proximal development. So the scaffolding, the support provided by a more knowledgeable individual to help a learner bridge the gap between their current abilities and their potential development. Cultural tools. The role of cultural artifacts, symbols, and language in shaping cognitive process and learning. Social interaction. Emphasis on the importance of social interaction and collaboration in cognitive development. So this is the summary what we talked about the Lev Vygotsky social cultural theory.